She was one of the richest women in America, yet the sight that waited for her behind the gates of her Beverly Hills mansion would make even the strongest heart tremble. When Evelyn Grant stepped out of her armored SUV that evening, she did not know that within a few minutes her world would break apart in ways she could never imagine. She thought she had everything under control: her company, her wealth, her security, even the woman she trusted to care for her little girl. But that night, a faint cry from the backyard changed everything. What Evelyn found would not only shake her to the core, it would uncover secrets darker than money or power could ever hide. Stay with me until the end of this story, because what begins as a mother's worst nightmare will grow into something much bigger than anyone expected. And before we start, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment where you're watching from. Your support helps us continue sharing stories that matter. The heavy gates of the Beverly Hills mansion opened slowly as Evelyn Grant's black SUV rolled inside. She had just returned from a long business trip in Tokyo, tired but eager to see her little girl, Sophie. For a week, she had told herself that her daughter was safe at home with Clara, the nanny she trusted. But as the car entered the garage, something soft, almost broken, reached her ears. It was not the sound of guards, not the sound of workers moving around the house. It was a cry, small, weak, and painful. Evelyn froze before the driver even switched off the engine. She stepped out quickly, her heels clicking on the cold floor, her heart pressing with unease. She followed the sound through the driveway and into the backyard. What she saw made her legs turn heavy. By the fence, on the dirty ground, her little Sophie was kneeling. The 5-year-old girl stretched her thin hand through the iron bars, begging with a voice so faint it almost broke the air. "Please, Mrs. Margaret, just a little bread. I promise I won't tell Clara you gave it to me." On the other side of the fence stood Margaret Lewis, the neighbor's black maid. She was holding a lunchbox, her face wet with tears. "My God, child," Margaret whispered, her voice shaking. "This can't go on. You're too small to be starving like this." Evelyn's breath caught in her throat, her eyes fixed on her daughter's body. Sophie was unrecognizable. Only a week ago she had been chubby, full of laughter, full of life. Now she looked like a ghost wearing a dress that no longer fit. The fine designer gown hung loosely from her bones. Her cheeks were sunken, her skin pale, her ribs showing under the fabric. Evelyn's whole body trembled. "Sofa." The name escaped her lips as a broken whisper. The little girl turned her head slowly, as if she did not believe what she heard. When her hollow eyes met her mother's, something inside Evelyn shattered. Sophie's thin lips quivered. She tried to stand, tried to run into her mother's arms, but her legs gave way after only 2 steps. She collapsed on the garden floor like a fragile doll. Evelyn rushed forward, her knees hitting the grass as she scooped her daughter into her arms. The child weighed no more than a toddler. Her arms were sticks, her body cold. A sour smell clung to her clothes, as if she had not been bathed or changed in many days. Evelyn pressed Sophie's head to her chest, tears burning her face. "Mommy, did you really come back?" Sophie's voice was barely a whisper. "Or am I dreaming again? I dreamed so much that you come back, but then I wake up alone in that dark room." Evelyn's lips trembled. She stroked the messy hair from her daughter's forehead. "No, baby. Mommy is here now. You are not dreaming." But her voice shook with guilt. She turned toward Margaret. "What happened? Where is Clara? Why is my child like this?" Margaret's face was full of anguish. She pressed the lunchbox against her chest. "Mrs. Grant, forgive me, I should have called you earlier, but Clara told me you didn't want to be disturbed with childish matters. I thought maybe I misunderstood. But I have seen Sophie wandering the street for 4 days, begging neighbors for scraps. At first, I thought it was a joke, but today she fainted right in front of me. That's when I knew something was terribly wrong." Evelyn's head spun. She was the CEO of one of the biggest tech companies in America. She had sat in boardrooms, closed billion-dollar deals, stood firm against investors. Yet in her own home, her daughter had been starving. 6 months ago, when her husband Daniel died in a car accident, she buried herself in work to escape the pain. She thought hiring Clara, a nanny with perfect papers and warm words, was the right choice. Clara had said all the right things, even claimed she understood grief because she lost her own father as a child. Evelyn trusted her. She believed the money she paid was buying safety for Sophie. But now, holding her fragile child, Evelyn realized how blind she had been. "Sophie, my love," Evelyn whispered, trying to steady her shaking hands. "When was the last time you ate something real?" The little girl thought for a moment, her eyes darting as if the memory was far away. "Yesterday morning, Clara left a piece of bread in my room. It was old. She said I had to learn to go without food because fat children are disgusting and nobody likes them." Evelyn's body shook with rage. Her jaw tightened until it hurt. Margaret sobbed behind the fence. "Mrs. Grant, I gave her fruit whenever I could, but Clara warned me never to interfere. She said you wanted Sophie to be trained to be stronger. I regret not calling you. I regret believing her words." Evelyn pressed her lips against Sophie's forehead. Tears streamed down her face, falling into her daughter's tangled hair. "No, Margaret. You cared for her when no one else did. You are the only reason she is still alive. I owe you more than I can ever repay." Sophie shifted weakly in her arms. "Mommy Clara says you don't want me anymore. She says you left forever because I cry too much for you." Her little voice broke into sobs. "Is that true?" Evelyn's heart twisted. "No, baby, that is not true. I never stopped loving you. I should have been here. I am so sorry." At that moment, Evelyn understood that this was not just neglect. Something darker was happening in her home. Sophie spoke again, her lips trembling. "Mommy Clara takes pictures of the house all the time. She talks on a secret phone in a strange language. Sometimes men come when you are not here. They take things away." Evelyn's blood turned cold. She rocked Sophie gently, hiding the storm in her chest. She kissed her daughter's forehead again and again, whispering, "You're safe now. Mommy is here. That woman will never hurt you again." She turned to Margaret. Her voice was steady now, controlled like steel. "Please call an ambulance. And please do not tell anyone I came back early, especially not Clara." Margaret nodded quickly, wiping her tears. "I understand, ma'am. I'll do it right now." Evelyn tightened her arms around Sophie's frail body. She could feel every bone, every weakness. And with every breath, one truth settled deep inside her. Clara Benson had chosen the wrong family to betray. For Evelyn Grant was not just a grieving widow. She was a mother with power, resources, and now a fire burning inside her. And that fire was about to consume whoever had dared to harm her child. But tonight, her only mission was saving Sophie's life. She rocked her gently as the sound of sirens slowly approached. Evelyn whispered into her daughter's ear, "You are safe now, my love, and I promise this nightmare ends tonight." The red lights of the ambulance painted the mansion walls as paramedics rushed inside. Evelyn refused to let go of Sophie, carrying her all the way into the vehicle. The little girl's head rested on her mother's chest, her breathing shallow but steady. Margaret stood by the gate, her hands clasped tightly, whispering prayers as the ambulance doors closed. The ride to the hospital was filled with silence, broken only by the sound of medical machines beeping as the paramedics checked Sophie's pulse and blood pressure. Evelyn sat still, her arm around her daughter, her mind racing but her face calm. She had faced boardrooms filled with powerful men, reporters throwing sharp questions, competitors trying to destroy her company. But nothing compared to the fear of losing her child. At the hospital, doctors rushed Sophie into the emergency room. Evelyn followed, but a nurse gently blocked her. "Please, ma'am, we need space to work." Evelyn's hands trembled. For a moment she felt powerless, standing in the white corridor, her body heavy, her heart screaming. She pressed her palms together and whispered to herself, "She will live. She must live." Minutes felt like hours until a tall man in a white coat approached her. His face carried both professionalism and quiet anger. "Mrs. Grant," he said firmly, "I'm Dr. Thomas Reed. Your daughter is severely malnourished. She has lost close to 40% of her healthy body weight. She is dehydrated and very weak." Evelyn's breath caught. "40%?" she whispered. The doctor nodded grimly. "Yes. And there is more. Her blood tests show traces of benzodiazepines. These are heavy sedatives, completely inappropriate for children. The levels suggest regular use, not a single dose." Evelyn's body stiffened. Sedatives. Someone had been drugging her child. Dr. Reed continued, his voice heavy. "She also shows signs of vitamin deficiency, chronic fatigue, and—" He hesitated, his jaw tightening. "Marks on her wrists and ankles that suggest she was locked in confined spaces for long periods." Evelyn pressed her hand against the wall, her knees weakening. She had seen mergers collapse. She had seen headlines destroy reputations, but nothing could match the pain of hearing what her daughter had suffered. Her phone buzzed in her purse. She pulled it out with shaking fingers. A message appeared from Clara Benson. "Mrs. Grant, I heard you came back early. Sophie had a dramatic episode today, but everything is under control. No need to worry. Children exaggerate when they miss their mothers. Tomorrow, we'll talk about my raise. Taking care of such a difficult child requires more work." Evelyn's eyes narrowed. Rage boiled inside her, but her fingers remained calm as she typed back, "Of course, Clara. We will talk tomorrow." Another message came almost instantly. "I'm glad you finally see my value. I have managed to tame her. I mean, help her." Tame. The word struck Evelyn like a knife. Clara thought of Sophie as an animal. She slipped the phone back into her purse, her face unreadable. When Sophie was finally moved to a hospital room, Evelyn sat by her bedside. The little girl was hooked up to the fourth fluids, her cheeks pale but her breathing steadier. Evelyn stroked her daughter's hand, whispering softly, "Sophie, my love, can you tell me what Clara did when I was gone?" The child blinked weakly, her lips moving slowly. "She locked me in the dark room. She said crying children don't deserve light. Sometimes she gave me medicine that made me sleepy. I didn't like it, Mommy. It made me feel like I was floating." Evelyn's tears slid down her cheeks. "Did she hurt you, baby?" Sophie nodded faintly. "She said I had to be strong. She said you didn't want me because I was weak. She took pictures of the house and called strange people. Sometimes men came, they took Daddy's things away." Evelyn's body grew stiff. Daniel's belongings. His watch, his books, even the wine he had saved for special days. Clara had been stealing, all while destroying Sophie's spirit. Dr. Reed returned with a clipboard. "Mrs. Grant, we are admitting Sophie under full observation. She needs days of care, maybe weeks. I will also be required to report this to Child Protective Services. What has been done to her is criminal." Evelyn nodded, her eyes fixed on her daughter. "Do everything necessary. But please, keep this private for now. No one outside this hospital must know I am back, especially not Clara." Dr. Reed studied her for a moment, then nodded. "I understand." As the night stretched, Evelyn sat alone in the chair by Sophie's bed. The steady beep of the monitor filled the room. She held her daughter's tiny hand, whispering promises. "I will fix this, Sophie. I will protect you. No one will ever hurt you again." But inside her, a different voice spoke, sharp and cold. Clara Benson had crossed a line that could never be forgiven. She had starved, drugged, and locked a 5-year-old child. She had lied with confidence, believing she had complete control. Evelyn was not just a grieving widow anymore. She was a mother who had just discovered the full depth of betrayal. And unlike others Clara might have fooled, Evelyn had the money, the power, and the will to destroy her. She opened her phone again and scrolled through her contacts until she reached one name, Richard Coleman, her head of security. She did not press call yet. Not tonight. For now, she needed to stay with Sophie. But soon, very soon, Clara would face a storm she could never imagine. The nurse entered quietly and placed a blanket around Evelyn's shoulders. "She will be okay, ma'am. She's safe now." Evelyn nodded, though her eyes never left her daughter. Safe for the moment, yes. But as long as Clara roamed free, danger lingered. Evelyn would not rest until every truth was uncovered and every chain broken. She leaned closer to Sophie and whispered one last promise before closing her tired eyes. "Sleep, my love. Tomorrow we begin. Tomorrow I will show Clara what it means to hurt a mother's child." The hospital room was quiet, except for the soft rhythm of the machine beside Sophie's bed. Evelyn sat with her head leaning against the chair, but her eyes never fully closed. Dawn was beginning to stretch faint light through the window when she made her decision. She kissed Sophie's forehead gently and whispered, "Mommy will be back soon. I'm leaving you with good people, but I must go take care of something very important." She walked out of the room and called Richard Coleman. His voice came through almost instantly, steady and alert. "Mrs. Grant?" "Richard," Evelyn said firmly, though her throat was tight with emotion. "I need you at the house immediately. I want a full sweep of every room, every device, every corner. If there are hidden cameras or strange connections, I want them found." There was a short silence. Then Richard answered, "Understood. I'll gather the team. We'll begin within the hour." By the time Evelyn's armored SUV rolled into her driveway again, Richard and two of his security men were already waiting with equipment cases. Evelyn's steps were slow but strong as she led them inside. "Start with Sophie's room," she said. "That is where the truth will be." It did not take long. Within minutes, one of the men pulled a tiny black device from the corner of Sophie's closet. "Camera," he said quietly. Another was found behind the vent, then another hidden inside a teddy bear. Evelyn's stomach turned as she realized Sophie's suffering had been watched, maybe even recorded. Richard's face darkened as he examined the footage. These aren't just live feeds. They've been saving to an outside server. Evelyn's voice was low and sharp. "Show me." They connected to a secured tablet. What Evelyn saw made her hand clench into a fist. The screen showed Clara Benson in different rooms of the house. Clara shouting at Sophie, calling her a useless burden. Clara forcing pills into the child's mouth, while Sophie cried weakly. Clara locking Sophie in a small dark room with only cardboard for a bed. Evelyn pressed her hand to her lips, forcing back the cry that threatened to escape. Richard looked at her, his jaw set. This is criminal evidence. Whoever she is, she knew what she was doing. Evelyn nodded slowly. Her eyes were cold. "Keep copying everything. I want every second of this saved." They moved through the rest of the mansion. In the master bedroom, her sacred room, she had not stepped into since Daniel's death, they found something that made Evelyn's body stiffen. The door was slightly open. Evelyn motioned for the men to stay back. She pushed the door carefully and entered. There, lying across her king-sized bed, was Clara Benson. She was wearing one of Evelyn's evening gowns, a red dress worth thousands. Around her neck hung Evelyn's pearl necklace, a gift from Daniel on their 10th anniversary. The expensive jewelry box was open on the bed, its contents scattered like cheap toys. On the nightstand, one of Daniel's most prized wine bottles saved for a special day was half empty. Clara held her phone up, snapping selfies, pouting into the camera as if she owned the life she was pretending to live. Evelyn stood silently in the shadows, her breath steady, her eyes locked on the woman. Clara typed a caption under one of the photos, "Living the life I deserve. Luxury comes naturally when you're good at what you do." Evelyn's lips tightened into a thin line. She pulled out her own phone and began to take silent photos of Clara, documenting everything: the stolen dress, the jewelry, the wine, the arrogance. Clara laughed to herself, clearly pleased with her reflection. She had no idea the real owner of the house stood only a few steps away. Evelyn's fingers shook slightly, Not from fear, but from the restraint it took not to drag the woman off the bed right then and there. When she had enough evidence, Evelyn stepped back into the hallway. Richard was waiting. "She is inside," Evelyn said, her voice quiet but sharp as steel. "Taking pictures in my gown, drinking my husband's wine." Richard's eyes widened. "Do you want us to remove her now?" Evelyn shook her head slowly. "No, not yet. If we act now, she'll slip away and cover her tracks. I want everything ready first. Evidence, witnesses, cameras, even the police positioned. When I strike, it must be final." She walked to Sophie's old room, the one Clara had turned into a cell. The door was locked from the outside with a crude hook. Evelyn's hands trembled as she pushed it open. The smell hit her instantly: urine, mold, and despair. The walls that Daniel once painted with cheerful colors for their daughter were now stained and dark. In the corner sat an old crib with no mattress, only cardboard at the bottom. A small shoebox was tucked beside it. Evelyn picked it up and found stale pieces of bread, a plastic water bottle, and crumpled drawings. She unfolded one with shaking hands. A child's drawing of a son, 2 stick figures holding hands, Mommy and Sophie. Above it, written in uneven letters, "Mommy, come back soon. I can be strong." Another drawing showed a tall figure with sharp teeth, labeled "Bad Woman." Evelyn's tears blurred her vision. She photographed each drawing, her hands trembling but her face steady. These were not only Sophie's cries for help, they were evidence of her pain. Richard entered quietly. "Mrs. Grant, we traced Clara's documents. Her real name isn't Clara Benson. She is Linda Parker, and her past is filled with patterns, different jobs, different families, same results. She destroys them, steals from them, and disappears before anyone realizes." Evelyn closed her eyes briefly, then opened them with renewed fire. "Not this time. She will not disappear. I will make sure her face, her name, her crimes are known by the whole country." Richard hesitated. "There's more. She isn't working alone. We've detected connections to other women across cities. It looks like a network." Evelyn's lips curved into a cold smile. "Then, we won't just catch her. We will burn down the entire network." She stood in the middle of Sophie's ruined room, surrounded by the smell of cruelty, holding her daughter's fragile drawings. At that moment, Evelyn transformed. She was no longer the grieving widow who had buried herself in work. She was no longer the distracted mother who trusted the wrong person. She was a woman with a mission, armed with power, resources, and the truth. Clara or Linda, whatever her name was, had picked the wrong house. And soon, she would learn that there is nothing more dangerous than a mother who has nothing left to lose. The morning sun was already high over Beverly Hills when Evelyn sat in her private study, her face calm but her eyes sharp. Around her sat 3 people she trusted: Richard Coleman, her head of security, Edward Miller, her lawyer, and Sarah Mitchell, an investigative journalist from CNN. The air in the room was heavy. Evidence lay scattered across the table: photos of Clara in Evelyn's gown, videos from the hidden cameras, Sophie's heartbreaking drawings, and the records Richard had uncovered. Evelyn's voice was steady. "This is not just about me or my child anymore. Clara Benson, or Linda Parker, is not a simple nanny. She is part of something bigger. We will not just fire her, we will expose her." Sarah leaned forward. "With your permission, I can broadcast this live. The country will see what she has done. They will see every second of the proof. But you must be ready for the attention. Once this goes public, there is no turning back." Evelyn nodded. "Let the world see, if it keeps one more child safe, that it is worth everything." Richard tapped the files in front of him. "We have traced Linda's connections. She is linked to at least 11 other women across different cities. They follow the same pattern: enter a grieving family, abuse the children, steal, and then vanish. It is organized, not random." Edward adjusted his glasses, his voice heavy. "This is enough to bring in law enforcement on a national scale. If we move carefully, We can bring the entire network down." Evelyn looked at the drawings on the table again. "The one with crooked letters, Mommy, come back soon. I can be strong." She placed her hand on it gently. "We move carefully, but we move now. I will not allow her to slip away like smoke. She will be caught, and the country will watch her fall." Her phone buzzed. Evelyn picked it up and read the message. It was Clara. "Good morning, Mrs. Grant. Sophie had another episode yesterday. You see how difficult she is? We must discuss my raise today. I deserve $15,000 a month for the hard work I put in. If not, I may have to share with the press how you neglect your daughter. I also have photos that would make you look very bad." Evelyn's jaw tightened. She read the words twice, her expression calm, though fury burned inside. Blackmail. Clara thought she still held control. Evelyn typed slowly. "Of course, Clara. Come to the house this afternoon. We will talk about your new terms." The reply came quickly. "Perfect. I'll see you at 3 o'clock. Finally, you understand how valuable I am." Evelyn put the phone down. Her lips curved into a smile that carried no warmth. She looked at the faces around the table. She thinks she is walking into a negotiation. In truth, she is walking into her own ruin. Richard spoke firmly. "We'll set up hidden cameras in the living room. The police will wait outside until the right moment. Sarah will have her crew ready to go live. Edward will handle the legal framing." Edward nodded. "Once she speaks, once she admits even a small part, it will be enough. Add the footage we already have, and the case becomes unbreakable." Sarah leaned back, her eyes focused. "Viewers will see her arrogance. They will see the evidence. It will not just be an arrest. It will be a public unmasking." Evelyn rose from her chair, her back straight, her face composed. "Then it is decided. At 3 o'clock, the mask falls. She took my child's laughter. She turned my home into a prison. She lived my life as if it were hers. Now she will lose everything." The hours that followed were tense. Workers moved quietly through the mansion, setting up microphones and cameras. Police officers in plain clothes positioned themselves at hidden points. Sarah's team tested the live equipment. Every detail was checked and checked again. At 2 o'clock, Evelyn received another message from Clara. "I'm here. I'm upstairs in your room. Your perfume smells wonderful. Let's talk about my new salary when you're ready." Evelyn read the words without emotion. She did not answer. Instead, she turned to Richard. "Is everything ready?" "Yes," he replied. "When she comes down, we will be waiting." The mansion felt strangely silent as the final preparations were made. Evelyn walked slowly through the living room, looking at the cameras hidden in the corners, the microphones under the furniture, the large screen that had been set up for the victims to appear virtually. She paused in front of a framed photo of her late husband, Daniel. His smile seemed to look back at her, calm and strong. Evelyn touched the glass gently. "I will not fail our daughter. She will be safe, and the woman who hurt her will face justice." As the clock moved closer to 3, tension filled the air. Sarah adjusted her microphone, whispering to her crew. Richard checked his earpiece. Police officers tightened their grip on the badges hidden under their jackets. Edward flipped through the case files one last time. Evelyn stood tall in the center of the room, her face calm, her hands steady. Inside, her heart beat with controlled fire. The sound of footsteps came from upstairs. Clara Benson Linda Parker was coming down. She believed she was walking into a meeting about money. She believed she still had power. But in truth, she was about to step into the biggest trap of her life. The clock struck 3. The sound of heels clicked on the marble staircase as Clara Benson descended from the upper floor. She wore one of Evelyn's silk gowns, her hair neatly done, her lips painted red. Around her neck hung Sophie's little locket, a gift from Daniel that had no business on anyone else. She walked into the living room as if she owned it. "Finally, Mrs. Grant," she said with a smug smile. "You've come to your senses. I told you, taking care of Sophie requires extra effort. Now, let's discuss my new salary. $15,000 a month should be fair. Evelyn stood in the center of the room, her face calm, her voice steady. Clara, or should I say Linda Parker, we will discuss your future. But it will not be about money. Clara froze for a second, then forced a laugh. My future? Don't be dramatic. You left your daughter in my care. Without me, she would be nothing. You should be thanking me. Evelyn's lips curved into a cold smile. She gave a small nod. At once, lights snapped on. Cameras hidden in the corners came alive. A large screen flickered, showing the faces of women Barbara King from Seattle, Dorothy White from San Francisco, and others who had suffered under Linda's schemes. Clara's eyes darted around, her smile faltering. What is this? Sarah Mitchell stepped forward, holding a microphone. Good afternoon, America. We are live from Beverly Hills, where shocking crimes against children are being revealed. Clara's face turned pale. Live? You can't do this. Evelyn, tell them this is nonsense. Evelyn's voice was sharp as glass. It is not nonsense. You drugged my child. You starved her. You locked her in darkness. And you sold her suffering to strangers. The screen shifted. Video clips appeared Clara screaming at Sophie, shoving pills into her mouth, locking her inside the filthy room. The audio was clear. Fat children are disgusting. No one will love you. Crying kids don't deserve light. Clara stumbled back, her voice trembling. These videos, they're fake. Someone edited them. Barbara King's voice cut through the speakers. You said the exact same words to my daughter. She almost died because of you. Dorothy White appeared next. You starved my son while you stole money from our home. Don't you dare say this is fake. Clara's mask cracked. She raised her hands, fake tears rolling down her cheeks. Please, I was sick. I needed help. You don't understand. Detective Frank Dawson stepped forward, badge in hand. Linda Parker, you are under arrest for child abuse, fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. Clara's eyes blazed with sudden anger. She screamed, This is persecution! Evelyn neglected her child. I saved Sophie from her. Evelyn stepped closer, her voice low but filled with power. Saved her? You poisoned her. You took her laughter, her safety, her innocence. You are no savior. You are a predator. Richard Coleman held up the financial records. $2.3 million stolen over the years. Luxury trips, jewelry, all bought with blood money. Sarah Mitchell turned to the camera. This network of women targeted grieving families, leaving broken children in their path. Today, the truth is exposed. Clara tried to rush for the door, but two officers blocked her path. Her hands were pulled behind her back, cold steel cuffs locking shut. She screamed again, her voice echoing through the mansion. You'll regret this, Evelyn. I have powerful contacts. I will destroy you. Evelyn stood tall, her face calm. No, Linda. You are finished. The world will finally see you for what you are. As Clara was dragged out, the screen shifted to new images of other women across cities being arrested at the same time. Richard's voice was steady. The entire network is falling. They will not harm another child again. For the first time in days, Evelyn allowed herself to breathe deeply. She closed her eyes for a moment, then whispered, It's over. But in her heart, she knew the journey was not truly over. Sophie still had wounds that would take time to heal, and there were other children out there who had suffered in silence. Weeks passed. Sophie slowly regained her strength at the hospital. The color returned to her cheeks, and laughter began to fill her voice again. Evelyn was by her side every step, reading her stories, feeding her carefully, holding her when nightmares came. 6 months later, Beverly Hills saw a different kind of gathering. Cameras flashed as Evelyn and Sophie stood on a stage together. Behind them hung a banner, the Sophie Grant Foundation for Child Protection. Reporters snapped photos as Sophie, now healthy and smiling, cut the ribbon with a pair of small scissors. Evelyn placed a gentle arm around her daughter's shoulders. This foundation, Evelyn said into the microphone, is born from pain. But pain can become purpose. My child suffered because I trusted the wrong person. I cannot change the past, but I can protect the future. Already, this foundation has helped more than 200 children, and we are only beginning. Applause filled the air. Sophie leaned close and whispered, "Mommy, is Clara sorry now?" Evelyn knelt to her daughter's level, her eyes soft but firm. Maybe she feels sorry, but regret without consequences is not justice. She destroyed families, Sophie, and now she will spend the rest of her life paying for it. That night, in the quiet of her study, Evelyn received an email. It was from prison. The subject line read, "From Linda Parker." The message was short. "You destroyed my life. I was only doing my job." Evelyn stared at the words for a moment. Then she pressed delete. Some people never changed. They never accepted responsibility. But she was not interested in their excuses. The best revenge was not in answering Linda. The best revenge was this: Sophie safe in her bed, other children protected, and a system stronger than before. Evelyn stood by the window, the city lights shining in the distance. She whispered softly, "Daniel, I kept my promise. She will never suffer again." And with that, Evelyn turned her pain into a weapon for good. The predator was gone, but the mission had only begun. Dear viewers, Evelyn thought she was just coming home from a trip. She never imagined she would find her little girl begging for bread at the fence of her mansion. That single moment uncovered lies, betrayal, and a dangerous woman who had hidden behind a fake smile. But it also showed the world the power of a mother's love. Evelyn turned her pain into strength. She saved her child, exposed a network of predators, and built something that would protect many more children in the future. The lesson is clear: never ignore the small signs. Sometimes the people who look the most professional hide the darkest secrets, and sometimes the ones society overlooks, like Margaret, the maid next door, are the ones who truly care. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment where you're watching from. Your support helps us share more stories that matter. Because at the end of the day, justice is not just about punishing evil, it is about protecting the innocent.